social entrepreneurship and impact investing in Belgium. So the vision is that non-profit and for-profit should come together. Social organizations should become a bit more entrepreneurial, and enterprises or companies should become a bit more social. And if they work together, if they collaborate, it's possible to do good and do well in the same time. So since I really believe that social entrepreneurs often have innovative models to solve societal big issues, we have to support them with capital, but also with the network, with expertise. So there are many things you can support those innovations to scale the positive impact in society. And so when in 2012 I launched the first Social Impact First fund in Belgium, it was SI2 fund. I got some messages from neighbors and friends of mine saying that we read in the paper that you launched a social impact fund. Can I join? And I had to say that no, it's impossible to join because in fact, it's not impossible, but for many people it's impossible because we set the bar to invest at a rather high 250K, so 250,000 euros. So that's in fact maybe not so social. And in that sense, I was always interested in democratizing, I don't know the word in English, of social impact. And in fact, crowdfunding is an ideal way of to democratize, godverdikke, dat is een moeilijk woord, the impact investing space, because I believe often these social innovations are local and are very inspiring, and people want to be part of it and want to invest in it and are ready maybe to take higher risk or accept maybe lower returns. So if you could provide a crowdfunding platform that is makes it possible for every citizen to invest small amounts in those innovations, that it would be good for the market. So when we discovered LITA, and LITA was looking for offices, we invited them to come to the Impact House, and later on Impact Capital, my holding, invested also in LITA. So I'm very proud that Eva, who is the founder, who started this journey in Paris, came to Brussels and is here now to talk to you. Enjoy the session.
I go? Okay, hi everyone. Really thank you for the invite. Maybe to start, would be interesting for you to share all the cliché or idea you have about finance, and how is it possible to make finance a tool for citizens and a sustainable tool. So what do you think about finance? When you think about finance, what do you think? You can put it on the chat or... Okay. Thanks. Okay. Please don't hesitate to put the words, even if I'm talking during it, because it's quite interesting because everything you say could be true, and it's quite interesting to see how we developed this idea, but trying to use it as a tool and not as an ideology or as it's already working today. So the session is about crowdfunding, but something that is really important to us, more than crowdfunding, is how to make finance the game changer for the ecological and social transition of our economy, and how citizens through finance could be the game changer. So today we use two ways to do it, and I will tell you a little bit about the history, but we use the crowdfunding way, and the democratization of ecological finance. The crowdfunding way is the platform you all know, LITA.co. When we were 23 and when we started this company, we wanted to really transform finance, to make it ecological, etc. But we realized that we had only 23 and that we have the tools that we could use, and also that the finance sector, it's really regulated, it's really complicated, and not really accessible for everyone to develop. For instance, today it's quasi impossible to launch a new bank, a real bank, not a branding new bank, but a real new bank. As if you want to launch a bank, you need to be a bank financed by the European Central Bank, and all the new banking actors that you can see, apart from Triodos that really launched a new bank, are a replicate of another bank, etc. So it's really a difficult sector to really change and to create new solutions. This is why we wanted to use like a solution that could be developed without being too much regulated. I worked when I was in India in crowdlending, microfinance crowdlending, and when I came back to France, I analyzed the problem that we faced. The first one is that citizens really don't understand how the economy is working and what is the link between the economy and the financial system. I mean, 90% of the citizens that we asked didn't know if the financial product was really financing the economy, and didn't really understand what it means to invest, really, what it means really to invest in a company. This was the first problem. The second one is that the social and ecological project were facing the classical venture capital fund, asking them the same type of return on investment that they asked to the non-social sector. And it was quite difficult for them to propose exactly the same type of short-term return on investments. And the third thing is that the investment for individual is not accessible. Today, if you are an individual and you want really to invest directly in the economy, I mean, in France, it was impossible. You needed to be part of a business angel network, like really elitist, and from like a big business school to know the different projects you could be business angels. And you need to invest quite big tickets in order to be really considered as an investor. So we really wanted to democratize these investments that could make people understand really how economy is working, and also to help projects and social and environmental company having like an ethical capital, an ethical roundtable, meaning having their stakeholders integrating their developments and their roundtable, their employees, their customers, the people that really could support the project and make the project resilient, because they don't only have a financial interest investing in the project, but that they also have an interest that the project needs to survive, because they are the beneficiaries, or they are consumers that really want this company to survive. So this is how we started, and then 2 years after we launched the project in Belgium. I really wanted to be interactive, so please, don't hesitate. And then when we launched it in Belgium, we realized that the Belgian market faced the same problem, and that needed the solution, and it was really a universal solution, and really a need for the individual to be part of this social and environmental economy. And then we analyzed a second way to have, and then I would get back on crowdfunding, but a second way to have an impact, and a second problem about finance is that it's not transparent, and for everyone, the idea to choose a financial product, it's really complicated. They don't really choose, they invest on what their banks tell them to invest on, or the level of guarantee and risk that the product have. But we also know that there's a lot of problem in the financial sector. The financial sector is the main responsible of the climate collapsing, it's because they are part of the decision making the economy. Today we are waiting for big companies to transform, etc. We talk about the ecocide. I don't know if it's the word in English, but meaning that it's a crime against the environment to develop an activity that has a bad environmental impact. We are talking about all of that and blaming a lot the people responsible for the company and the dirigeant, I mean the managers of those companies, and we are like pointing them and saying, okay, they are responsible for all the collapsing of the climate and the biodiversity. But what we can see is that sometimes it's not in their hand; it's in the hand of the shareholders. There's a great example, Danone. I don't know if you know this company. They are also really famous in Belgium. They choose to become a mission-driven company, like 1 year, 2 years ago, meaning that they want their social objects to be aligned with a social mission. Then the mission is the health and the protection of the biodiversity. It's the boss, Emmanuel Faber, that really put this mission into the company, talked a lot about it, trying to transform also the value chain of Danone, develop some activities, really having a really positive impact, etc. But in the way of transition, when you choose to do a transition takes time, and the transition is not compatible with a short-term profit and our short-term return on investments. So Danone, during this 1 year transition, the margin quite began to be a little bit lower. But I mean, talking about their activity sector, it was a little bit lower than the other one, Nestlé, etc. But still, the company were working. They were like not really a big economic issue facing Danone, but the margin was lower and the return on investment for shareholders were lower than the other company in the same industry. So the shareholders wanted to get rid of Emmanuel Faber, and they are really pushing him to license people and to improve the short-term margin and get the dividends they deserve. So we see that even when a boss of a company wants to transform the company, if the shareholders are not aligned with these objectives, the company will never change. So we need to think about how we could really make the company change and really have an impact on the shareholders. And when we analyze who those shareholders are, it's mainly pension funds, it's mainly asset managers, and 80% of those asset managers and pension funds we are talking about in European companies, 80% behind it, it's citizens. Citizens through life insurance product, citizens through pension fund, citizens through some accounts, etc., etc. But that we don't know it. We don't know it. We don't know what company we are financing through our financial product. And also, we don't have any impact on the decision the financial institution takes in those companies. So this is why we developed a new product called Heeft. It's an application. It's not available in Belgium right now, but it will be available quite soon, analyzing what is really behind the social the financial product that we have, what company are behind it, and also what is the environmental impact that our financial product have, and also how we could really be active for our financial institution to really align their decision with the problematic of the century, climate one, the social one, etc. So my point is that today citizens have a lot of power in transforming the economy. They could invest in this directly themselves. They could really, with those investments that are quite interesting, we have like bonds that you can invest in, for instance, in the agriculture sector that is working quite good. We have equity you could take of social or environmental real estate projects. You could invest also in startup or tech for good. Tech for good is the company that use technology there to tackle a sustainable development goal. You could also invest in local company. We have on the platform a specific sector called Close to Me, meaning that it's really project really close to you that you could go to and really be part of. And we also have SMEs that develop the employment of your country or your region, etc. Because we know this COVID crisis really had a huge impact on the activity, but also with all the big debt plan that the central bank, the European Bank, allows local financial institutions to do. The companies are really in debt. They will need to reimburse it in 1 or 2 years. It could have a big impact on the employment locally. So this is why those companies really needs capital and long-term financing in order to pass this crisis. So the impact on those platforms is really, really important too. And we also see that it's quite interesting. During the COVID crisis, we were really scared because we saw that the markets, the financial markets, like went crazy. People were quite scared about their financial product, etc. And we thought that people will never, during this period, continue to invest in an economy they don't have a vision about. But what we saw, it's totally the inverse, the opposite. People were acting really with solidarity and really wanted to invest in companies that they understand, because we saw also that this COVID crisis revealed a lot of what our economy is not good about, meaning this in terms of sovereignty. I don't know in Belgium, but in France, during 3 weeks, we couldn't buy masks because we didn't have the capacity in Europe, in a country that is supposed to be quite developed, the capacity to put a bit of tissue and some elastics to protect ourselves. Also in terms of health sovereignty, we also had some penury, some products where we couldn't buy some products, etc. So people really ask themselves on what the economy want to have in our own country, and this is why those projects were really more financed than usual. And also it was an act of solidarity toward the economy that people were doing. But it's true that we were really, really surprised in the good way about it. I don't know if you have questions. Really, please don't hesitate. If you have some specific subject you want me to, because I can talk about anything and everything. So if you have some specific subjects you really want me to talk about, please don't hesitate to put it on the chat or to raise your hand so I can hear you too. So what we see is that it's a really, really important tool to develop today. And we also know that there is a new regulation on the European level that will also improve the cross-border financing activity. Today, we are developing in each country separately, and soon in each country they will cover the part of Europe they would want, thanks to this European accreditation. So it will be a quite interesting tool and also a good way to imagine our economy or our companies directly in a European level, because it's really we think that that's really the future of our economy, to develop a sustainable model that Europe can propose to the world in terms of sustainability of our companies, in terms of employment and in terms of ecological footprint. Do you think that socially and ecologically responsible financial assets are more risky than others? I don't think so. And I even think that it's more resilient in a different level. If we take the big level, like the big guys, the really big companies, we analyzed with Rift really interesting thing is the physical risks towards the transition, meaning the impact on the growth of companies due to a problem of a change of because of the environmental problems, meaning the water penury or the climate change, etc. So all the impact of the climate change to the growth and to the economical growth. And we see that the scenario shows that if companies are not taking into account those environmental problematics and socially problematics, the growth will tend to decrease. So this is also something that the big asset manager understood. BlackRock last week published a new text about activism, shareholder engagement and shareholder activism, and now they will take into account the physical risk due to the climate change. So it's an example on how really we see that if we don't take it into account, we are not going to be resilient in an economical way. And we can see also it on unquoted company, the company that we propose on LITA, towards all classical SMEs. Why? The first reason is that those companies are really supported by their customers, by their stakeholders, and they have also a good social core, meaning inside the company, employees are happier than in other companies, so they are more productive and they are more supporting the company. So this is a reason why they are more resilient. The second why is that they are less on competitive markets. Social and ecological company tends to go on markets that are really not well covered by the market and really respond to a social or environmental problem. So they are really resilient to competitive problems, and so they are more resilient in a way. So those two reasons show, and also we analyze it on the market, that those companies, they are not more risky, they are more resilient, but this is true that they provide less short-term remuneration, more important. But it's for the resilience, because what is the model that we want? Is it the model of Uber that during a crisis get rid of 5,000 people of the company through Zoom in 5 seconds? Is the resilience, or the resilience is more to have a natural organical growth, maybe less hyper growth, but that can really be sustainable and resilient on the long term. So when you are on the logic of a financial portfolio, a financial product on medium term, there is a lot of study show that it's more resilient to be on SRI or green investments. Clarification, can we currently invest through LITA from Belgium to France, and will we be able to invest with the new European directive? Today, when you are on the LITA website, as a Belgium investor, you can invest in the company that the Belgium website proposes. And sometimes the Belgium website selects some French products, but not always. They don't choose all the projects that we have on the French website. But you have mainly some of the best sometimes from what I saw. So it's quite good. And this is something we are going to improve and do more. Cross-border operation we do sometimes, but we are going to do it more. And with the European directive, it will not change anything, but you will be able to invest more easily on more projects on European level. But it's something that we are still looking at, because the directive is published, but the regulators, meaning the AMF in France, equivalent of the FSMA in Belgium, didn't produce their regulation paper. So we don't know really the impact of the text of the European Commission in reality, because there are some stuff that are not really understandable. So we are waiting for the real regulation, and we get back to you on that point. What are the legal entry barriers which crowdfunding platform face? Today, we don't have the European directive. It will be published in September, but today, how is it working? There is not united capital markets in terms of crowdfunding. So each country have their own regulation and their own services they can provide and their own platform. Because what is regulated is the fact to communicate toward investors. In each country, in each European country, you can invest in every European companies, but for you to invest, you need to have a local platform with the local accreditation to communicate to you the information. So today in France, for instance, we are advisors, financial advisors. In Belgium, we are a platform. In Italy, we are also a simple platform, etc. But it will change soon, I hope. And it's quite a legal barrier because it costs in terms of compliance of your tool, in terms of understanding the regulation, in terms of postulating. It's a big dossier to do. It's like opening an investment company. So it's quite regulated market. But it's really interesting because it really professionalizes also your approach of those investments. So it's quite good in a way. I'm quite a fan of the regulation. Fine in the end. Okay, no more questions. So what can I add about my subjects and why did I forgot? So what does LITA mean? LITA mean Live Impact Trust. It used to mean Live Impact Trust Act, but it doesn't mean it anymore. It's just a brand, and it's a brand that we like because it's short, it's understandable, and for once, it's the sonority are quite feminine for a company in the financial sector that is quite different from all of the other companies. Or banks or etc. So yeah, we wanted to have a feminine persona, and it's also because we are quite a robo advisor in a way on financial investment. So this is also why we developed it as LITA, and it's quite interesting to just talk about this. It's also a subject I'm working a lot on. It's how those financial sector is limited in terms of transition because of some injunction, and that stands in a quite dominative posture, meaning that the value toward the financial sector, apart from the regulation, apart from etc., but really the value of the financial sector blocked it to really make this transition. And it is quite interesting to do it when you are administrator of a bank. And also, so this is the first reason. And the second one is today the model d'affaires, so the economical model of the bank depends on the interest. And it's an economical model that will never be aligned with the transition problematics if the European Central Bank doesn't really change the covenants of the value and the money creation they propose. This is why we are also supporting a lot a plan of value of money creation by the central bank directed toward the transition with new covenants, integrating the climate risk, integrating the social risks, etc., etc. And now that we have a taxonomy, European taxonomies, green taxonomy that will soon have a biodiversity taxonomy and a social taxonomy, it will be also a good way to try to reallocate the amount put by the European Central Bank into social and green projects. How many are you now in Belgium? I think there's Vincent and Céline, they are here. They are the head of Belgium, and maybe they can also respond. How is it going? How is it growing? Because we are a company of 60 people, and we have a company of entrepreneurs, and So everyone manage their own activities. But yes, we are satisfied about it. We think that the Belgium market is really a really interesting market. They have a lot of liquidity available and sense for the transition of their own economy. So yeah, we are satisfied, and I think it will be the year that it will really improve, and we are trying to go on other segments of investments, because they started with startups and local projects, and now they will push to real estate, renewable energy, etc. That are segments that we developed earlier in France, and now that we'll also develop those segments in Belgium, and there's a lot of potentiality in those segments too. Do you have other questions? Nope. Okay. So I don't know I don't know if you have questions, Els and Pete, because it's quite confusing to speak like this.
Yeah, I would think that our participants have so many questions, but apparently they're not ready yet to ask them.
Okay, well, I can keep on talking, no problem for me. So this is also something that we really want to improve. Is the shareholder engagement, meaning when you are part of an adventure, of a financial product, how you can really be someone that change and transform the economy. And for instance, we will going to launch in 2021 a strategy where all the citizens will use Total, the General Assembly of Total, that is the big fossil fuel company, and we'll try to push the integration of the mission of Total to be aligned with a 2-degree scenario on scope 3. And this is like a big thing. Last year, there were only 16% of the General Assembly that vote for Total to be aligned with those. And we analyzed that even imagine that will really empower the citizen investing in the financial products managed by the person present in Total, how we could really push those 16% to 51 or 52% for it to really make a change. And this year we will do it, and we are quite optimistic about the result that we could have, empowering the citizens into the transformation of this big company. So it's really like, and we have a really good result on Shell. It's a company that do it a lot. The name is Follow This, and we have really good results. So this is why we are going to launch that. Is there room for different investor profile on LITA.co? Yeah, totally. This is why sometimes the journalists, etc., ask me what is the typical investor in LITA.co, and I mean there's not really, because people could invest from 100 euro to what they want in the projects they selected, etc. We have some people, their own portfolio size 200K, and people, their investment portfolio in LITA size 2,000K. Not 2,000K, 2,000 euro. So it's really accessible for everyone. And also what is really interesting is that investors, we ask the question, did you already invest in social or environmental products without before coming to LITA? And 80% of them say no. And when we ask them why, they say because they don't really understand what is the social impact of social responsible investment. Because in the end, even if there's climatic problem, and we know it, etc., people still think that the value is individual. So they want projects aligned with their own value. For instance, there are people that believe in the décroissance, decreasing the growth. People believing in green growth. People thinking that climate is the more important thing we need to care about. People thinking that no, biodiversity is the thing that can really regulate the climate. People thinking that employment is more important because if we are suffering of a social crisis, we cannot do any good decision, etc., etc. So people are really interested in typical, specific type of social or environmental purpose. So this is why they use also LITA. It's because they can really choose the project and the value that they want to defend. So they are really diverse in terms of portfolio. They are really diverse in terms of type of social impact they want to find. And they are really diverse also in terms of knowledge they have on the financial sector. There are people that never invested in their life and people working all their life in finance. So really room for every profile. Do you think secondary market for quad equity will be necessary for more direct retail investor? Yeah, this is also a reason why we developed the bond activity. When we started, we did only equity, meaning investing in capital, in really the shares of a company. It's not a liquid market because you invest in a company that is not quoted on the market. So you will exit the company when the boss of the company will choose to sell, or the General Assembly will choose to sell the participation that you have, or to buy it, or to exit totally the company and to sell the entire company. So it's riskier. So it's true that in the specific type of investment, secondary market are something we need to think about. But we also see that it's really important for someone managing the company to have the end of their own equity and to take the different steps, meaning the seed, the Series A, Series B, the different type of financing, not to have of it their shares quoted on the secondary market, etc. And also, we don't want to be the victim of the same things we can see on financial or stock exchange, financial market or stock exchange, meaning that we need to evaluate the shares every 5 minutes or every second based on information that does not give us information on how the company will really improve, but on really short-term information. So this is why secondary market, it's apart from the fact that it's not possible to do it for now, there's also another response. But the reason why we didn't do a lot of lobbying towards the financial regulators, it's because in the end, we are not so sure that it's the solution. Because we think that if we do equity, it's also to have a resilient approach. Also, we have some fiscal incentives that people can take when they invest for 5 years. So for those markets not to be that liquid, it's not that a problem. At one point, it will be interesting, but if you want to develop it, and we have it in mind, we really need to think about how we can develop really a social and environmental stock exchange and do really differently from the classical stock exchange, meaning evaluating the share based not only on financial KPI, but also on extra financial KPI, like climate risk, social risks, etc., etc. And also not to reevaluate the shares every 2 seconds. Also cancelling all the it's really complicated financial lexic to know it in French, so sometimes in English not always that easy, but the operation on the financial market when people invest and sell the shares on every second. This has a big impact on the price of the shares on the market and on the financing strategy of the companies. And it's been really bad operations. This is why at the European level, I don't know if you saw that, there's a Euro deputy called Pierre Laroutourou that stopped eating to put tax for the financial transaction tax, meaning that people that invest pay each time to limit those operations on the market. That has a really bad impact on the economy in the end. So we need really to think about all of it. So this is also why we developed a bond bonds, it's more liquid. You get an interest rate each year. For the bonds, we could also create secondary markets, meaning you can exchange your bonds because it's a liquid asset. So this, we are going to look at it also with the European regulation. It could maybe allow it more. More projects today. More projects today are semi-equity in local social business, while Africa projects look often for loan. High frequency. Thank you. Yeah, we are looking at it right now. The problem that we have is that when something is really important for LITA is to be close to the project we finance and to be in the capacity to accompany them on the strategic committee, but also on a daily basis, and could have the capacity to connect them with a partner when they need so, and etc. And we know how complicated it is to do a good reporting, even when the company is 5 feet from you. So this is a reason why for now we didn't went to the African markets. But for the little anecdote, when we started the company with Julien, my partner, when I was 23, the company was supposed to be called Gododo, meaning exchange in the local dialect in Togo, because we went in Togo when we were 20 and launched an NGO there. And the first idea of LITA, militante, Gododo first, was the idea to use the diaspora in Europe to finance projects in Sub-Saharan Africa, Maghreb, and the Middle East. But you know how complicated now it is to be in line with the financial local regulation. Imagine to launch a platform like this, how many legal problematics it cross, etc. So it was impossible to do it. But today we are thinking about it and trying to imagine how it could be possible. We talked a lot with the Moroccan financial institution and some institution also in Senegal or in the Middle East, and we try to help them to construct their crowdfunding regulation, because for many of them they don't have it. And then when there will be final crowdfunding regulation in those countries, maybe we will think about it. Today, we also think about doing maybe some microfinance projects, and we do some of them, but they need to have their headquarters in Europe. It's just that. But this is something we are looking, to be really honest, but I cannot say more. It's really something that we are looking at in Belgium and in France in different ways, because we still think that there's a lot of the diaspora that could be really, really interested in supporting those projects, not only the diaspora. And because we know that some of the helps or the financing made by the Banque Mondiale, it's not really invested in the good project. And also even from our, sorry for them, but from our own development banks, heeft, etc. There's a lot of conflict of interests between the European companies in Africa and the local development financial actor. And that is not always the local companies that are chosen to get the investments, the big investments. And it's a new form of colonization that we would like to avoid. So it's also an interesting thing in that sense, also to try to see how we can be part of the development of the local economy. And when I mean local, I mean the capital managed by the local citizens and owned by the local citizens, not only working on those companies, in order to really share the financial value. So this could be a really, really interesting idea that we are looking at. Does LITA wants to hold social impact bonds? We were thinking about it. In France, we have some organizations that propose us to put social impact bonds. For now, it's not regulated that way. But we are trying to find the way to do so. We need to, for people who don't know the social impact bonds, it's a triptych between a social project, a government, or a foundation. For instance, in Australia, the foundations replace the government, and investors. Mainly today, those investors are institutional investors, banks, etc., or funds. You have the social projects, you have the governments, and you have also agencies evaluating the social impact. And the principle is that investors invest in the social company, the governments guarantee those investments and reimburse to the investors when the social company achieve the social impact KPI than an institution evaluates. So it's an interesting triptych because it creates social impact without, and it drives a company, social impact company, really to achieve the social KPI, and the government really guarantee it because it avoids costs for the government that the social company exists, because it creates jobs, it helps on real estate issue or etc. And that is something that the providential state should do. So it's helping the government, so they pay back for what is done by social companies. The problem is that for now, in many European regulations, the social impact bond, it's only the possibility to subscribe. Sorry, it's only for professional investors, for banks. So we are trying to experiment a way that private investors on the platform could also buy those social impact bonds. So we are working on different projects. It would be interesting to talk with the Belgian government also about it, if they want to experiment it with private investors. So it's a good idea, and I think we heard it, and we could look at it, Céline and Vincent. There are Céline and Céline on my screen. Do you have SICA which are managed by LITA according to certain principles? We are working on it right now. Actually, we are raising a fund to co-invest on every project that we have on the platform, for one by one euro invested, 1 euro co-invested. But for now, it's really for professional investors. And I have a new dream from last week that I'm quite, overthinking about it, like day and night since 2 weeks. It's to launch a shareholder fund, taking the shares on the more fossil fuel carbon footprint emitters companies in Europe, and to try to propose transformation and resolution to the General Assembly to transform those companies. So doing shareholder activism, because this is something you need to know, is that when you invest on an SRI fund, excluding some companies, like for instance, including oil or nuclear energy, or I don't know, you don't transform the economy, because there's always someone investing apart from you. So maybe it's better for your own morality, but it doesn't change anything in a way. So this is why the only way to change things is really to have shareholder activist funds, but good in a good way, not a financial activist as others. So this is also a new SICA that we want to launch. So the funds to co-invest in LITA and this fund is the two things we want to implement soon. Can you provide some insight into your sourcing activities? How challenging it is? Are you more proactive than reactive? I think it's the more challenging, the sourcing and the company we put on the platform. It's more challenging than raising money. Money, there's a lot. Liquidity, there's a lot when there's good companies, or companies are open to be financed on the platform too. So it's quite challenging. How we do it, we go through different networks, different funnels. The first one is the social media, of course, and the media. This is also why we do a lot of media, because we are in the financial sector. We cannot do a lot of publicity, so we do a lot of media be known and to attract some companies. We also work on co-investments with financial institutions, so investors and banks, etc. So there's many banks and many investment fund, impact fund that say, okay, we can co-invest with LITA, and so it also brings some projects. We do a lot of partnerships also with local collectivity to be also to know more about the projects in terms of renewable energies, real estate, etc. And we do a lot of partnerships also with incubator, scientific pole, and we do direct also. So we identify the better companies we have on the green and social sphere, and we contact them directly. Voilà. But I cannot say that we are even reactive or proactive. I mean, it's 50-50, quoi. We could live without doing any sourcing, but we want the best, so we do it too. There's 5 minutes left, so I don't know if you have a last question or not.
Okay, I think everyone asked his question then. Eva, thanks so much for your inspiring talk, for sharing your thoughts and insights, and I hope everyone will go to your platform now and discover all the interesting projects that are there. Thanks for your time. Thanks for your time, everyone who joined, and hope this session triggered you. And to end with, do check our website for our upcoming Mondays, Impact Mondays. We have 3 more in March, of which the first one on March 8th, the International Women's Day, where we have some female voices of the Impact House in the talk. For the rest, have a nice end of the day and hope to see you soon. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye, thank you.